In 2010, I was driving from New Orleans, Louisiana to Eugene, Oregon. It was just me, 24 female, and my 2-year-old pit bull in a 14-foot U-Haul truck with everything I own crammed into the back, a quote fancy, unquote flip phone, and my printout of MapQuest directions. I think the first smartphones actually came out around that time, but I didn't have one. Cell phone service was also much spottier, and there were long stretches through the desert where I had zero service for hundreds of miles. I was driving a lonely stretch of highway through central Texas when I realized I hadn't seen a town or an exit for a very long time, and my giant U-Haul was really low on gas. Just when I'm starting to freak out and seriously run out of gas, I see a small town coming up. I pull into this town and it is tiny. I was so worried about other things that I never did pay attention to the name of the town, but there were only about 6 streets in the whole place. I go gas up and I'm ready to get back on the road. Except I cannot, for the life of me, find my way back to the highway. I circle the town about 4 times and start getting so frustrated because this is such a tiny town. How the can I not find my way out? I can literally see the highway, but I can't get to it. I return to the gas station to ask for directions. Now, when I got gas, I paid at the pump and never went in. When I enter for directions, there's a skinny, nondescript guy who has black hair hanging down in front of his eyes that looks like it could use a good wash. He's not particularly creepy, but a little rude. He never really met my eyes. He was looking down at a magazine. He gives me directions that don't sound right at all. He's telling me to take a road that will get me to the highway in about 17 miles. For a moment, I am dumbfounded. Then I point out that I didn't drive that far to get from the highway into town. Why so far to get back to the highway? I can literally see it from the town. He is so casual, almost like I'm just an annoyance and can follow his directions or not. Why should he care? He gives me some explanation about the road curving around that doesn't really make sense. He still doesn't look at me, just whatever. I gave you your directions and waved his hand in the direction of the door. When I got into the parking lot, my whole body started trembling violently, and my heart started racing, seemingly for no reason. I get into the truck, and as soon as I put the key into the ignition, I burst into tears. I had the most terrible feeling that no matter how nonchalant he acted, this man had bad intentions. I didn't know what, but I knew right then and there that there was no way I was going to follow his directions. Yet this was the only store in this little town, and short of knocking on doors, no thank you, there was no one else to ask for directions. I decided I didn't give a if this town seemed like something dropped out of the Twilight Zone. I was going to drive around until I found my way out, even if it took all night. Then a big red beater of a pickup truck, as much rust as metal, pulls up and disgorges the quintessential Texas man, huge, husky, and in flannel and work boots. Without even thinking about it, I jumped out of the truck and approached him quickly yet warily. Looking into his eyes, I saw a kind human being, or at least I was hoping I did. I asked him if he could please give me directions to the highway. I told him I knew I was being silly, but I just couldn't seem to find my way back. He looked concerned, as I was visibly upset, and very cheerfully gave me directions for a hairpin curve turnoff right at the end of a small concrete tunnel I had passed several times. He said it often confused travelers because it was so hard to see and they need to put up signs, etc. With a sinking feeling in my stomach, I asked him, how far in miles was it back to the highway? He laughed and gave me a funny look and said, quote, miles, miss? I'd say it's a quarter mile at most. You can see the highway right from here, unquote. At this point, I couldn't help it. I had to know. What happens if I drive? And I gave him the directions the man in the store had given me. Texas looked at me very intently and asked me how I knew about that route. It was pretty far out, and usually only locals know about it. So I told him. He was quiet for a few minutes and then asked what the attendant looked like and if I had a map of the state. Nope, just my MapQuest, which wasn't helpful in this situation. He goes to his truck and grabs a raggedy local map from his glove box. Spreading it out for me, he traces the route I described. The way the man from the gas station had told me to go led away from town, away from the interstate, and led to seemingly the middle of nowhere. Texas told me the road did go about 17 miles right before it dead-ended in the desert. I asked him what was out there, and he told me that it was nothing but some junked cars and a few trailers and mobile homes, all owned by the same family. This family was known locally as troublemakers, meth heads, and alcoholics, and these were the nice things people had to say about them. And the erstwhile clerk was part of this family and lived down that road. I'll never forget the look in Texas's eyes as he told me this. He also told me that I was smart to listen to my instincts and to be careful traveling out there. I don't know if the man from the gas station wanted what was in the back of my U-Haul or what was in the driver's seat, but thankfully, I didn't have to find out. Oh, and I learned that sometimes angels look like ruddy-haired Texans with scruffy faces and rusty pickups. Thank you, random Texan stranger. You really saved my ass, and I will always remember you with tons of love. Sorry I didn't ask your name. You're forever Texas to me now. Edit. Talked to my mom and realized that I was wrong about the year it happened. She also helped me finally figure out why I couldn't place where this happened, even though I've made this drive several times. This post is long enough, but the circumstance that took me off the beaten path across Texas were so bizarre that I guess I blocked them out of my memory until she said something. I thought it deserved its own thread. I chose this story as one of the first 5 because it truly disturbed my spirit. Which was unexpected. I'm a true crime buff, and easily disturbed is not an accurate descriptor for me, ever. But getting lost the way OP did, I felt that personally. I most certainly have been lost before, but lost meaning temporarily disoriented. Like, I go for a bike ride and see a new street, and our bike ride turns into 2-hour bike ride because I am lost. In Los Angeles, a city that I've lived in for 20 years. But this is a different kind of lost. Like, she was extremely lucky that man in the red truck just happened to show up, because what if he hadn't? Like, I might die in this weird ass town because Mother Nature's playing peekaboo with the on-ramp. Like, that to me is scarier than any violent criminal any day. It's the unknown. It's just so weird to me. The other reason I chose this for Storytime is because I want to know what you think the family was up to. I even considered the possibility he was just, doing a prank. He was just going to have her drive the 17 miles out and, haha, got you, that's not the way. And I do wonder what their game plan would have been had she rolled up on him, and then what? She says at the end of her story, she didn't know if they were going to rob her or if they wanted her. It doesn't make sense to me that if robbery were the plan, they would have her drive out to them in that big ass truck. That's just me. It seems to me like if you want to rob someone, you just want to jack them quick, then they go to the gas station. So to have her driving out, that was probably her they wanted and not just the truck. Even though I'm sure they would have repurposed the U-Haul and turned it into a tiny home, and probably, to be honest, buried her underneath it. So I always wonder about people like that and their motivations. If it was harm, what was the plan to get away with it? I don't know. I do not know. The next story time, it's not a continuation, it's a prequel, which I already have a lot of thoughts on, and I am sure you will have a lot of thoughts on it as well. It's crazy. Thank you all for listening. I really do appreciate it. Before you go, please take a moment to help us out with the algorithm. You can subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you liked the video, a dislike if you didn't, and leave a comment if you can, even if it's just hi.